Don't touch me, Mom. My son's words hit harder than if he had shoved me. The music was still playing, the game still blaring on the big TV, people laughing over paper plates. But the moment Mark yanked his arm away from my hug, all of it went dull and far away. It was as if my hands were something dirty. I stood there in the middle of his living room in Cedar Grove, clutching a small wrapped box, feeling heat creep up my neck. I just wanted to say happy birthday, I said. I meant it to sound warm, but it came out thin, almost trembling. He didn't lower his voice. I heard you. You already said it, okay? You don't have to make a scene. Just go back to the kitchen, Mom. Go back to the kitchen. That was all he heard in my words. Not love, not pride, not the memory of all those years I scraped and saved to buy him tiny store-bought cakes when money was tight. Just an inconvenience to be redirected toward dirty plates. I felt every pair of eyes slide toward us, then away again. Quick, polite, the way people look at a roadside accident and pretend they didn't see anything. Brittany stood on the other side of the couch, frozen with a plastic cup in her hand. She offered a small, embarrassed smile to their friends and said lightly, "She just gets sentimental sometimes," as if I were a child having a moment. Sentimental? Not my mother-in-law, not the woman who does our laundry and picks up our daughter after school. Just sentimental, like a drip that never quite stops. I forced a smile that made my cheeks ache. "Sure, honey," I said. "I'll start on the dishes." I walked toward the kitchen slowly, carefully, so no one would notice how badly my knees were shaking. The wrapping paper crinkled in my hand. The gift felt foolish now. A simple photo frame with a picture of Mark at 8 years old, standing on a little league field, gripping a plastic trophy, grinning like he owned the world. I had spent an entire afternoon finding the frame, lining the photo up just right, imagining it on his desk at work. Now all I could think was that the boy in that picture would never have pushed his mother away in front of a room full of people. In the kitchen, the smell of pizza and barbecue sauce mixed with the sour tang of half-finished beer. The island was littered with plates and napkins. Ranch dressing dripped down the side of a bowl. I set the gift by the sink, turned on the hot water, and began scrubbing. Every cheer from the living room reminded me I wasn't part of the celebration, just the cleanup. "Dude, that game was insane," someone shouted. "Mark, you nailed it with this house," another voice said, followed by laughter. Brittany's voice cut through, bright and confident. "Well, it takes a village," she said. "We work hard to keep it this nice." We. Not once did she say my name. Not once did she mention that the village was an older woman upstairs who scrubbed their floors, ironed their clothes, and watched their daughter whenever they were too busy. A plate slipped in my hands. I grabbed the sink to steady myself. The resentment sat heavy in my chest, thick enough that I felt like coughing might dislodge it. Sophie appeared in the doorway, hovering as if unsure she was allowed to cross into the kitchen. "Grandma?" she whispered. I turned, drying my hands on a towel. "Hey, sweetheart." I tried to sound normal. Her eyes were glossy. "I'm sorry Dad said that," she murmured. "He just gets weird when his friends are over." His words echoed again. "Don't touch me. Don't make a scene. Go back to the kitchen." I smiled at her because smiling was easier than falling apart. "It's okay," I said. "He's got a lot on his plate." Even as I said it, my stomach twisted. I knew the habit well, protecting him from the truth, the way I always had. Sophie stepped forward and hugged me anyway, her thin arms fierce around my waist. I rested my chin on her head, breathing in her shampoo, clinging to the one person in that house who still saw me as more than a pair of working hands. From the living room, Brittany called, "Soph, can you not disappear right now? People are asking where you are." Sophie pulled back, rolled her eyes. "I'll be there in a second." Then she looked at me again. "You don't deserve that, Grandma," she said quietly and firmly. Those words lodged deep beside the hurt. "You don't deserve that." I wanted to believe her more than anything. "Go on," I said gently. "Enjoy the party." When the last guest left, the house sagged into a heavy silence. Cups on the table, greasy foil on the counter, crumbs everywhere. Mark collapsed onto the couch, grabbed the remote, and flipped on sports highlights as if the night had exhausted him. Brittany surveyed the mess and sighed dramatically. "This place is a disaster," she said, then looked straight at me. "Elaine, can you clean all this up? I'm completely wiped." No, please. No offer to help. Not even a glance of concern after watching her husband humiliate me. "I can start," I said carefully. "Maybe we can finish the rest tomorrow." Her eyebrows shot up. "Tomorrow? We can't leave it like this overnight. What if someone stops by?" Mark didn't even look up. "Mom doesn't mind," he said. "She likes keeping busy." Likes. As if it were a hobby. As if my back didn't ache every night climbing the narrow stairs to my room. As if I hadn't moved in because they promised, "We'll take care of you." I swallowed the words burning my throat. I'm tired. I hurt. I matter. Old habits won. I nodded. "I'll take care of it," I said. They smiled, satisfied, and turned back to the TV. That smile hurt more than his earlier rejection. It showed exactly what I was to them. Something useful, something always on. I cleaned, I washed, wiped, bagged trash, and carried it out into the cold night air. Each trip outside gave me a moment of space, away from their voices, away from their needs. When I finally climbed the stairs, the house was silent. They had gone to bed without a word. My room felt smaller than ever. The slanted ceiling, the twin bed, the dresser, Tom's photo on the nightstand. I sat down and pressed my fingers to my temples. "Don't touch me. Go back to the kitchen." She likes keeping busy. The words looped in my head, each one sharp, like glass buried under my skin. For years I told myself this was security, that being useful was the price of not being alone. But sitting there, hands still smelling of dish soap, I understood something quietly devastating. I was already alone. The thought arrived gently. "You don't have to stay." I glanced at the small suitcase by the closet, still half-packed after all this time. For the first time, instead of guilt, I felt a steady, warming anger. Not destructive, but clarifying. I didn't make a plan. I didn't know where I'd go. But in that small room, under that crooked ceiling, I made one decision. I would not let them speak to me that way again. I would not spend the rest of my life scrubbing floors for people who couldn't say thank you. In the quiet of that Cedar Grove night, I decided I was leaving this house. They just didn't know it yet. By 4 in the morning, I was already dressed. The house was quiet in that heavy, unnatural way that presses in on you. No hum of the dishwasher, no television murmuring in the background, no footsteps overhead. Just the ticking of the kitchen clock and the sound of my own breathing. I stood at the counter in the Cedar Grove kitchen, staring down at the short letter I had written and rewritten 3 times before settling on the plainest words I could manage. "Mark and Brittany, thank you for letting me stay here. I'm going to find my own place. Please don't worry. Elaine." Even reading it made my chest tighten. "Thank you for letting me stay here." The words tasted wrong. I had cooked their meals, folded their clothes, scrubbed their floors, watched their child, and still, there I was, thanking them like a guest who had overstayed her welcome. I left it anyway. I didn't want to give them anything they could twist. No accusations, no feelings, just facts. I placed the note beside the coffee maker where I knew Brittany would see it first. I could already hear her voice in my head, sharp with irritation. "She just left a note? That's it? After everything we've done?" The way she always said everything we've done made me sound like a project they'd taken on, not a person. The resentment rose quietly but firmly. They never said after everything she's done for us. It was never about that. My suitcase waited by the back door. I'd packed it the night before. A few changes of clothes, my medication, Tom's photo, and the worn Bible he used to keep on our nightstand. When I lifted the handle, my hand shook. I was afraid. I was old. I didn't know exactly where I'd end up. But beneath the fear was something steadier. I knew I couldn't stay and keep pretending I was fine. Outside, the air was cool and damp. I pulled the door shut gently, careful not to let the latch click. It struck me then that I was still being considerate, slipping out like a teenager, worried about waking the very people who told me to go back to the kitchen, like hired help. The cab rolled up, headlights washing over the driveway. The driver took my suitcase and asked, "Where to, ma'am?" "Just a motel off I-77, I said. "Something cheap." As we drove away, I watched the house shrink in the rearview mirror. That big two-story place, perfect lawn, porch light still glowing, looked like something out of a magazine. If someone had snapped a photo right then, they'd never see the old woman in the back seat, leaving before sunrise because her son couldn't tolerate a simple hug. The motel was exactly what I expected. A faded sign. A lobby that smelled of cleaning spray and old coffee. The clerk barely looked up as he slid the key card across the counter. "One night?" he asked. "For now." He wasn't warm, but he wasn't unkind either. Just neutral. Strangely, that felt better than the false sweetness Brittany used so often. "We love having you here, Elaine," she'd say, usually right before handing me another list of chores. Sitting on the edge of that motel bed, the air conditioner rattling, I finally understood how empty those words had been. She loved what I did, not who I was. I turned on my phone. It didn't take long. "Mom, what is this? Where are you? This is really worrying." I stared at the screen. "What is this? Not 'are you okay?' Not 'what did we do?'" The phrasing made my leaving sound like some inconvenience he had to manage. Guilt and anger tangled together in my chest. I'd spent years smoothing things over for him, keeping the peace. Now that I'd done one thing for myself, he sounded annoyed, not concerned. A few minutes later, another message appeared. "Elaine, this is very sudden. We wish you had talked to us first. Sophie is upset. This is putting us in a difficult situation." Every sentence pressed down on me. Very sudden, as if I hadn't been giving until there was almost nothing left. "We wish you had talked to us first," as if I hadn't tried. In 100 small, ignored ways. Putting us in a difficult situation, as though years of unpaid labor had been effortless for me. They were worried about the hole I'd left in their routine, not the pain that had driven me away. I turned the phone face down and didn't reply. Bringing Sophie into it felt deliberate. Your upsetting Sophie had always been their favorite way to pull me back into line. The resentment settled deep. They were her parents. They should have been thinking about how their behavior affected her, not blaming me for it. After a few days at the motel, I started looking for something permanent. I found a small apartment in an older brick building near downtown Charlotte. The hallway smelled of dust and laundry soap. The floors creaked. It wasn't fancy, but when I stepped inside the empty unit and saw the small kitchen, the living room, the bedroom, one thought filled my mind. This is mine. The landlord, Mr. Donnelly, a stocky man with tired eyes, jingled the keys. "It's not much," he said, "but the heat works and the neighbors are quiet." "It's enough," I told him, and it was. As I counted out the deposit, I thought about how casually Mark and Brittany talked about me living there for free, as if my presence hadn't come with a lifetime of work behind it. Part of me wanted to call them and say, "See, I can pay my own way." I didn't. They didn't deserve the proof. I bought a secondhand couch and a small table from a thrift store. Carrying each piece inside felt like stepping out of a role they'd written for me. That first evening, I sat at the wobbly table with a cup of tea and listened to the quiet. No one calling my name. No one asking where their socks were. No one saying I liked keeping busy. A knock at the door made my heart jump, but it was Sophie, holding a bag of snacks and a small potted plant. "Mom thinks I'm at a friend's," she said as she stepped inside. "The house feels weird without you. Dad says you're just being dramatic. Mom says you'll come back once you cool off." Being dramatic. Cooling off. That was how they explained my leaving, not as the result of years of disrespect, but as a phase. I looked at my granddaughter standing in my doorway, taking in my plain little apartment, still smiling. "It feels better here," she said softly. "It feels like you." For the first time in a long while, I let myself believe someone truly saw me. Not as help, not as a problem, just as myself. Sitting in a small apartment I paid for on my own, farther from Cedar Grove than any map could measure. The envelope Sophie slid across my small kitchen table looked harmless enough. Plain white from a discount store, the kind I used to keep stamps in, but the way her hand trembled as she let it go told me it was anything but harmless. "Grandma, I need you to look at this," she said quietly. There was a tightness in her voice that made my stomach clench. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and sat across from her. Afternoon light spilled through the apartment window, forming a soft square on the table between us. For a moment, I wanted to push the envelope back, tell her it could wait, suggest tea, ask about school. I was exhausted by bad surprises, but instead, I opened it and slid the papers out. The first page had my name printed at the top, Elaine M. Atchison. Beneath it ran a long string of numbers and the words, Home Equity Line of Credit. My heart began to pound, slow, heavy, unmistakable. What is this? I asked, though I already knew. A loan, a large one. Look at the amount, Sophie whispered. My eyes found the number, $68,000. $68,000 in my name, tied to the Cedar Grove address. Heat rushed to my face. I never took out a loan, I said. My voice sounded distant, detached, as if it belonged to someone else. I've never signed anything like this. I know, Sophie said quickly. That's why I printed it. I saw Mom checking it on Dad's laptop. They've been making payments from your money. Her words landed one by one, heavy and cold. Your money. I thought of the modest deposit that arrived in my account each month. I'd always told myself I didn't need much, that it was fine to help with the bill since I lived there. I had believed them when they said everything went into one big pot, that they'd handle the details. I turned to the next page. A list of withdrawals and payments stared back at me. Some dates matched times I'd noticed my balance was lower than expected. I remembered asking Brittany once, timidly. She'd smiled and said, It's just automatic stuff, Elaine. Utilities, insurance. It's easier if we run it all together. You don't want to fuss with that. I'd nodded then, embarrassed for even asking. Now, sitting at my own table, the sting of that phrase hit me hard. You don't want to fuss. As if I were a child. As if wanting to understand my own finances were some inconvenient habit. There's more, Sophie said. Her fingers shook as she reached for another stack. These are emails. Emails? I copied them from Dad's account. I know I shouldn't have, but I had to. She pushed them toward me. Start with that one. The top page was an email from Brittany to Mark. I read slowly, my eyes catching on every line. Once we get Dr. Patel to sign off on mild cognitive decline, we can move forward with the power of attorney. It'll be easier to get her into a facility and sell the house. We need that equity, Mark. We can't keep carrying her. Carrying her. I read the phrase again, as if I were a burden they'd grown tired of lifting. As if I hadn't cooked their meals, folded their clothes, cleaned their bathrooms, raised their child. As if I hadn't already carried them in every way that mattered. They want to put me in a facility, I said slowly, like I'm something to be filed away. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. I heard them talking one night, she said. Mom said once they had the paperwork, it would be simple, that you wouldn't be able to argue. Dad said it was for your own good. For your own good. I'd heard those words before, years earlier, when Mark convinced me to move in after Tom died. You shouldn't live alone, Mom. It'll be for your own good. We'll take care of you. I had trusted him. Now, seeing that phrase again made my skin prickle. For your own good had become a weapon. Halfway through the stack, something inside me shifted. I had been reading like someone bracing for more blows, until I reached another email, this one from Mark to Brittany. She'll sign anything if you tell her it's routine. We've been doing everything for her so long, it's not like she really understands this stuff. I froze. My vision blurred and I had to blink hard. She'll sign anything. She doesn't understand. The words dragged me back to a memory I'd tried to bury. Lying on the couch in Cedar Grove after my fall, hip aching, groggy from pain medication. Brittany standing over me with a folder. Just some routine updates for the house and insurance, Elaine. Sign here and here. Mark behind her, arms crossed, not quite meeting my eyes. I had signed because I trusted them, because I thought they were protecting me. Now I understood. It hadn't been care. It had been the beginning of a trap. The resentment that rose in me then was sharp and clarifying. Not just hurt, recognition. I had raised that boy. I had worked extra shifts so he could play sports. I had watched Tom wear old shoes so Mark could go to summer camp. And now he was writing that I'd sign anything that I didn't understand. I paid for everything when he was little, I said aloud, and now they talk about me like I'm something they have to manage. Sophie reached across the table and took my hand. I'm so sorry, Grandma, she said. I didn't know how bad it was. I squeezed her hand. The only person with nothing to gain was the one taking the biggest risk. That mattered. That was the unexpected turn of the day. In the middle of all this ugliness, I saw something clean and solid. My granddaughter chose truth over comfort. She chose me. And that gave me strength I didn't know I still had. I could go over there and scream, I said quietly, throw these papers on the floor and demand answers. You could, Sophie said. But they'd twist it, I went on. They'd say I'm confused, emotional. They want me to lose control so they can prove their point. I shook my head. I won't give them that. These weren't misunderstandings, they were plans. I'm not going to yell, I said. I'm going to be careful. I'm going to understand exactly what they did, and then I'm going to stop it. Saying it out loud changed something. The fear was still there, but now it stood beside resolve. I stacked the papers neatly. Every email, every number, every phrase like mild cognitive decline felt like a puzzle piece. For the first time, I could see the picture they were trying to create, a future where I had no voice, no power, no home. Thank you for bringing this to me, I told Sophie. You did the right thing. What will you do now? She asked. I don't know every step yet, I said. But I know this. They think I'm weak, easy to move around. They're wrong. The resentment that once made me feel small now held me upright. I wasn't going to be the quiet, confused woman in their story. I was going to write my own. The sign on the glass door read, Senior Legal Aid Clinic in peeling white letters. If you walked by too quickly, you might miss it entirely, wedged between a laundromat and a dollar store like it was trying not to take up space. I stood there for a moment, gripping my folder so tightly my fingers ached, and thought about how far I'd come from that big house in Cedar Grove. Back there, they acted like they were doing me a favor. Here, I was asking for real help. Inside, the waiting room was small and plain. A row of metal chairs, a coffee pot on a side table, a bulletin board crowded with flyers about housing, benefits, and scams. The woman at the desk looked up and smiled. A normal smile, not the brittle, performative kind. Good morning, do you have an appointment? She asked. Yes, I said. Elaine Atchison, 10 o'clock with Michael Chen. She checked her list and nodded. You're right on time. He'll be with you shortly. Have a seat. That simple respect almost made my eyes sting. No one here treated me like a nuisance. No one told me I was being dramatic or needed to calm down. It made Brittany's old line echo in my head. Elaine, you don't need to worry yourself with this stuff. We've got it under control. Those words had once sounded soothing. Now, with the folder heavy in my lap, all I heard was, stay out of it. Let us do what we want with your life. Michael appeared a few minutes later. He was shorter than I expected, with kind eyes and a tired suit that looked like it had seen too many long days. Ms. Atchison? He said. Yes. I'm Michael Chen. Come on back. Let's take a look. In his small office, I sat across from him and opened my folder. My fear spilled out in paper form. The loan statement, the copied emails, the bank printout Sophie had brought me. I don't really understand how all this works, I admitted. I just know it feels wrong. He didn't interrupt while I told him everything. Moving in after Tom passed, the fall in the kitchen, the routine papers I'd signed while I was in pain, the loan I hadn't known existed. I watched his expression change when I repeated the line from the email. Once we get Dr. Patel to sign off on mild cognitive decline? He shook his head slowly. You're speaking clearly, he said, and you're recalling detailed events. I don't see any indication you can't make your own decisions. Hearing that from someone who didn't owe me kindness felt like an anchor dropping inside my chest. How many times had Mark laughed and said, Mom, you're forgetting things again, when I mixed up a date or asked him to repeat himself? Always with a smile, always with a small edge. Over time, I'd started to doubt myself. Sitting there, I realized how much those casual remarks had chipped away at my confidence. Every year confused, Mom was another brick in the case they were building against me. Michael lifted the loan statement. Did you ever go to this bank to sign anything? He asked. No, I said. I've never been there, not once. Then that's where we start. he replied. We contact the bank. We request records. We get facts. Piedmont Savings and Loan looked like any other bank. Polished floors, smiling posters, fake plants trying their best. A woman in a blazer led us to a small office in the back. I'm Rachel O'Neill with Fraud Prevention, she said as she shook our hands. When she spoke, she looked at me, not only at Michael. That mattered more than I expected. Michael laid it out calmly. My client did not authorize this line of credit. She never came here to sign anything. She did not apply online. We'd like to review your records. Rachel clicked through screens, her face tightening as she read. The application was completed online, she said, from an IP address associated with the Cedar Grove address. The email on file is not yours, Ms. Atchison. It belongs to your son. The words hit even though I'd already suspected it. Hearing it from a stranger made it official, made it real in a way I couldn't excuse away. My son had sat in that house, opened his computer, and put debt in my name. All those times he'd said, "Don't worry about the details, Mom, I've got it," rushed back at once. I had mistaken that for care. Now it sounded like control. Those words weren't meant to protect me. They were meant to blindfold me. Rachel clicked again. We have an electronic signature for the loan, she said. Let me pull your original signature card from when you opened your personal account. She brought both up on the screen side by side. Even from across the desk, I could see they didn't match. This doesn't look right, she said carefully. Ms. Atchison, did you ever sign for this loan on a tablet or electronic pad? No, I said, and this time my voice didn't waver. I did not sign anything for this loan, anywhere, ever. Rachel nodded once. All right, here's what we're going to do. We'll place an immediate freeze on the line of credit while we investigate. We'll also stop any automatic payments coming from your account until this is resolved. We take this seriously. For a brief second, I pictured Mark's reaction when the payments stopped. I could already hear him. Mom, you didn't tell us you were doing this. You're making things difficult. We were just trying to manage everything. That word, manage, made my jaw tighten. He spoke about me like I was an account to be handled, not a human being. Weeks later, when Michael said it was time to meet with Mark and Brittany, I agreed, but only in his office, with him present. I was done having hard conversations on their territory. They walked in together, dressed in their respectable clothes. Mark avoided my eyes at first. Brittany wore a tight smile that didn't reach her face. Mom, Mark began, we could have handled this as a family. Going to a lawyer and a bank, this makes us look bad. The resentment rose so fast it almost made me dizzy. Makes us look bad. Not this was wrong. Not, we're sorry. His first concern was appearances, not harm. Brittany added smoothly, we were taking care of everything for you. You know you don't like dealing with paperwork. Michael didn't let me answer. Your mother is capable of dealing with paperwork, he said. That's evident. What's also evident is that this line of credit was opened without her informed consent, using your credentials. The bank has confirmed that. He slid the documents across the table. I watched Brittany's eyes land on her own words in print. Mild cognitive decline. We can't keep carrying her. Her mouth tightened. Mark finally looked at me. Mom, we didn't mean it like that, he said quickly. We were just trying to plan. You worry so much. We were trying to handle it for you. There it was again. Handle it for you. Every time he said it, he erased my right to make my own decisions. Underneath it was the same message. You can't be trusted with your own life. The old habit of protecting him stirred in me, desperate and familiar. I pushed it down. I am not a piece of furniture you can move around and finance, I said quietly. You used my name and my money without my permission. That isn't planning for me. That's using me. They both started talking at once. Brittany tried to paint it as a misunderstanding. Mark blamed the bank, the system, confusing forms, anything that didn't require him to say the one thing I needed to hear. Not once did either of them say, I'm sorry I did this to you. It was all stress and pressure, and how hard things were for them, layer after layer of excuse. Each one only fed the resentment, sharpening it into something steady. Michael laid out the terms. Here's what happens next, he said. You will sign documents today revoking any authority over your mother's finances. You will sign a statement acknowledging this line of credit was opened without her informed consent. The bank will work with you on repayment. If you refuse, we will pursue additional legal remedies." Mark's eyes flashed. "So you're threatening us?" He snapped at Michael. I looked at my son. "This isn't a threat," I said. "It's a boundary. You crossed it. Now it's being put back where it belongs." They signed. I watched the pens move across the pages. Each stroke felt like a small repair, something being stitched back together inside me. The hurt didn't vanish. The resentment didn't evaporate. But alongside it, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. Months later, when foreclosure notices started landing in their mailbox, Mark showed up at Michael's office again. This time, his shoulders were slumped, his voice lower. "We're going to lose the house," he said. "Is there anything you can do?" I listened as Michael explained the situation, careful and clear. Then I spoke. "There is one option," I said. "I can buy the house. Through Michael, I have enough saved, and with the bank's terms, it's possible." Mark's face lifted, hope flashing across it. "So we can stay?" "No," I said, and my voice didn't shake. "You will move out within 30 days. You will sign papers acknowledging what you did. After that, the house is mine. You will have no say in it, and you will never again speak for me or touch my accounts." Shock crossed his face. Brittany looked angry, then afraid. Part of me, the old part, wanted to soften the edges, to make it easier for them. But then I remembered every mom, "You're confused," every Elaine, "Don't fuss with this," every decision made above my head like I didn't exist. My resentment kept my spine straight. They agreed because they had no better choice. When we stepped out of the office, the sun was bright on the sidewalk, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was walking under my own name, not as someone's burden to be managed, but as a woman taking her life back, one signed page at a time. When the closing papers were finally signed and the keys lay on the table between us, Michael smiled and said, "Congratulations, Elaine. It's yours." Mine, the Cedar Grove house, the same place where I'd once been told to go back to the kitchen, now had my name on every line that mattered. For a moment, I just stared at the keys. I thought about all the nights I'd scrubbed those floors for free, all the times I'd been told I liked keeping busy, as if I were some kind of appliance. Owning the house didn't erase that resentment, but it changed how it lived inside me. Now, every time I remembered their words, I also remembered this. In the end, they had to hand it all back. The move-out was ugly in small, quiet ways. No shouting, no dramatic scenes, just sharp little cuts. Mark avoided my eyes as he carried boxes to the car. Brittany moved through the house, muttering things just loud enough for me to hear. "I can't believe we're being pushed out of our own home," she said once, standing in the kitchen doorway. Our own home. The way she said it, you'd think I had never lived there, never cooked a single meal. The familiar resentment rose in my chest. Even now, they spoke as if I had taken something from them, instead of facing the truth, that they had tried to take everything from me. I didn't respond. I just watched her pull a framed photo off the wall and drop it a little too hard into a box. At one point, Mark stopped in the hallway, glancing around as if the house no longer recognized him. "We wouldn't be in this mess if you hadn't gone to that lawyer," he said quietly. I looked at him for a long moment. "You wouldn't be in this mess if you hadn't used my name and my money behind my back," I replied. My voice stayed calm, but his words still stung. Even now, he wanted to blame me for protecting myself. That told me everything I needed to know about where his priorities still were. After they left, the house felt hollow. Empty closets, echoes in the living room. I walked through each room slowly. In the kitchen, I ran my hand along the counter where I'd spent countless hours cooking for people who complained more than they thanked me. Upstairs, I stood in the doorway of my old narrow room and whispered, "Never again." Never again would I live tucked into a corner of a house I helped keep standing. I didn't move back in. That surprised everyone but me. My apartment in the city felt like my own skin now. I loved my small kitchen table, my thrift store couch, the muffled sound of neighbors' televisions through the walls, so instead of bringing my things back to Cedar Grove, I called a painter. "I want light colors," I told him. Warm, but simple. He covered the dark, heavy walls with soft tones. I bought comfortable chairs and quilts from secondhand shops. I fixed the porch railing and set out a couple of rocking chairs. With every small change, the house became less like the place where I'd been treated like hired help, and more like something new, something chosen. Through a contact at the senior center, I heard about women who needed a safe place for a while. One had just left a bad situation and was waiting on housing paperwork. Another had no family nearby and needed somewhere to land between hospital stays. I didn't put up a sign. I didn't need to. Word travels quietly in places like that. The first woman who stayed with me sat on the porch that evening, hands wrapped around a mug of tea. "I don't know why you're doing this," she said, shaking her head. "Letting strangers stay in your house." I looked at the street, the neat lawns, the sun sinking behind the trees. "Because I know what it feels like to live somewhere you don't really belong," I said. "This house was built on the idea that I should make other people comfortable. I'm changing that." Sometimes, between guests, messages came from Mark. "Mom, it still feels wrong that you're there and we're stuck in this tiny rental. We tried our best for you." We tried our best. The words went cold inside me. Their best had included secret loans, plans to move me out of the way, and years of treating me like staff. If that was their best, I didn't want any more of it. Another time, Brittany sent a long message about how hard things were now. "We're really struggling," she wrote. "It would be nice if you could help a little, considering everything we've done for you." That last line lit up every sore place. Everything we've done for you. No mention of the years I worked in that house. No mention of the debt they'd put in my name. Just another attempt to make guilt do the work. I didn't answer right away. When I did, my replies were brief and polite. "I hope you find a good solution," I wrote. "I'm taking care of myself now." Each time I hit send, a small wave of relief followed. I wasn't explaining, I wasn't defending, I wasn't fixing problems I didn't create. I could feel their frustration even through the screen. And yes, part of me still resented that my boundaries upset them more than their choices ever had. Sophie came by often. She helped change sheets between stays, brought small things for the house. "Dad says you're still mad," she told me once. "I'm still hurt," I said honestly, "and I remember what happened. That doesn't mean I hate him. It just means I won't let it happen again." She nodded. "I'm glad you're doing this," she said, looking around the living room. "It feels right." At night, I drove back to my apartment, locked the door, and sat by the window with a cup of tea. I was alone, but it wasn't the heavy, lonely kind I'd felt in that upstairs room in Cedar Grove. This was a quiet I had chosen, a space no one could take from me with paperwork or manipulation. Sometimes, lying in bed, I thought about that birthday party, about the words, "Don't touch me, Mom," about the way everyone had looked away. The resentment still flickered when I remembered, but now it shared space with other images. Mark signing away control, Brittany carrying boxes out the door, a woman smiling in a rocking chair on the porch. I didn't get a perfect ending. My son and I weren't suddenly close. My heart still carried Mark's, but I had something I hadn't felt in years. A steady warmth inside my own chest, not borrowed from anyone else's approval. And if you've ever been told you should be grateful while someone quietly takes pieces of your life, hear this. You are allowed to step away. You are allowed to protect what is yours. You are allowed to build something new. And if my story sounds even a little like yours, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to remember they are more than what they give.